kind of, made it their own. They called them synthpop. But that's a great song. Let's see. Soft Cell. Tainted Love, Torch, Say Hello, Wave Goodbye, What, and Bedsitter were all top 40 hits in the UK. But I'm not sure if anything else really broke here in the States, to be perfectly honest. In 1982, Tainted Love became a number 8 single in the United States and went on to set a Guinness World Record at the time for the longest consecutive stay of 43 weeks on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 chart. The song's popularity developed slowly, needing 19 weeks to enter the U.S. Top 40. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Good for them. So at least they have that Guinness World Record thing going for them. Next, it's iconic. I didn't think it made it this high up the charts, but the theme from Chariots of Fire is here at number 12. That's just absolutely fascinating to me that an instrumental theme made it. Have any others done that? I'd have to look that up. Really strange, but there they are. Vangelis, or is it Vangelis? I imagine it's Vangelis. Chariots of Fire. Running. Who knew? The next song is one of those. It's just the band itself. For some reason, I've always gotten the names kind of conflated with another band that are completely nothing alike, by the way. But sometimes I hear the name Quarterflash, and in my head I'm thinking of Supertramp. I don't know why. Completely unrelated. But here you have Harden My Heart by Quarterflash. So as I mentioned at number 1, you have Olivia Newton-John and Physical. Guitar, Steve Lukather. Here we have Rosanna by Toto. This is one of those things that we talked about last week, Justin and I, about great pop songs that are actually created by really good musicians. And, I think of another band, like someone like Boston, the band Boston. I'm not a big fan, but their songs are super well crafted because there's such a skill level and they take such time in the studio to really develop and refine the songs. Same thing with Toto. Rosanna, it has a very specific meaning. It's about Rosanna Arquette. It's just a great tune. It's just a great song. And this concept that you can't have a great pop song or radio friendly and still have the reputation as really strong musicians. That musicality is so, so important. And I think that goes with the next band here, Hall Oates. So Hall Oates, they are the possibly the best blue-eyed soul band ever. There's another band here on the list that, in my opinion, is probably their only other counterpart of the era. But Hall & Oates, they're on here a number of times. And here they are first with I Can't Go For That, No Can Do. Hall & Oates is such a great band. And oddly enough, almost underrated, I guess, in some ways, because of how good they really are. And the length of their career, I don't think people realize how far back they have been making music together. Now, I want to talk about a one-hit wonder that everyone knows the song today. Kids know the song, and they know the number. 8675309, Jenny by Tommy Two-Tone. I do know that that's a real telephone number, because back in the day, you didn't have to dial the area code first, right, if you were in the local area. So apparently, there was someone who had that telephone number that would constantly get calls. Is Jenny there? So I pity those poor people, but catchy tune. So this is an artist that I mentioned on the last episode, 1979. I mentioned Melissa Manchester, and it was Don't Cry Out Loud. I'm like, I don't know that I know any other songs. I listened to this song just because I was curious. I vaguely remember it. Maybe you all know it. You should hear how she talks about you. Yeah, that's all I got. So one of the bands that we have talked about at length over the past few weeks has been Foreigner, and how the ballad piece of their career was both a positive thing, obviously from a sales perspective, which is going to be something positive in their pocket. You know, you have a big, huge hit single. Now, mind you, the record label takes most of it, but this song in particular was one of those that kind of was like one of the death knells for the band, because the balladeer thing was an expectation for them. So I talked about the cringe of I Want to Know What Love Is. Waiting for a Girl Like You is probably 10 times more cringy. It's just brutal. However, the story behind it is interesting. So if anyone is familiar, and I'm sure you are, because again, talk about a song that was everywhere. There's a song called Uptown Funk. Uptown Funk, which is by Mark Ronson, and the lead vocals were done by Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars is fantastic, by the way. You know, there is good modern music, and I think he just has the total package. Great singer, performer, wonderful. Mark Ronson is the stepson of Mick Jones from Foreigner. And this song, Waiting for a Girl Like You, was written for Mark's mom, Anne, when Mick Jones had fully committed and saying, this is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Which, by the way, they have. They're still together. So Waiting for a Girl Like You was written for Mark Ronson's mom. They married. He becomes Mark's stepdad. And I think there's obviously some correlation with Mark's career in music, having been exposed to, one of the all-time great, songwriters of all time. Rick Springfield, Don't Talk to Strangers. Can't stand it. It's not a great Rick Springfield song. It was a hit. Juice Newton, other than Angel, never really had much use for her. She's here with the sweetest thing I've ever known. So now we're going to jump around a little bit, because a lot of these songs are just really meh. Willie Nelson's always on my mind. Pretty classic. I love Willie. It's still pretty milquetoast. A lot of the stuff, as you're going down the list, it's this weird thing. Because 82, you have some really good, strong rock bands, right? You go back to someone like Joan Jett, right? Who is also a little bit dipping in the toe in kind of a punk rock vibe, right? So she went in a different direction than some of the other members of the band. Like Lita Ford went straight metal, right? But Joan Jett is more just straightforward rock and roll, kind of punky, great vibe. So there's these bands that were new wave that were kind of in both of those worlds. Because I think that, the clubs that they played, some of the artists that they interacted with, it kind of lended itself to kind of being a little bit of both. So you have a band like the Cars, Shake It Up. So then another Boston band. So two Boston bands, on the list here with Jay Geils and the Cars. I love the Cars. So Shake It Up was one of their bigger hits before they really broke into superstardom. So it's good to see them here. And the first band concert I ever got was a hand-me-down from my aunt, who I've mentioned. She went and saw the Cars in concert. But the Go-Go's are on here. We Got the Beat. So the Go-Go's are definitely one of those bands that, was, I guess, kind of unexpectedly coming out of this other scene and breaking really big. Personally, my wife's going to hear this, no surprise. Huge crush on Belinda Carlisle, but also Jane Wiedlin. So Jane is, of course, Joan of Arc in Bill and Ted's. Just the Go-Go's were a really great band, and they were on all the time. And I guess I expected them to have had a longer, more fruitful career as a band. Obviously, Belinda Carlisle went on to do solo work, which is some really great stuff. But I really expected them, I think, to be around longer. And then, they get back together. They've done reunions. They've done tours. But they were as big a band as I can remember at that time. Now, here's a weird little confession I'm going to make. So I mentioned all the really cool 8-tracks that I had. But then I started buying, vinyl and being gifted vinyl. A record that I asked for. Now, remember, I'm 8. I loved Air Supply. I had Air Supply on vinyl, and I listened to that all the time. I don't know. But they're on here at number 28 with Sweet Dreams. That's a completely meh song. And I'm surprised when I look at the other songs that are on the list that this is the one that's up higher. Really boring song. The Motels with Only the Lonely. That is a killer tune. Absolutely killer tune. Love it. And then a band that I think somehow gets maybe not enough credit. I think they had a little bit of a resurgence because of a stupid TV show. Not a stupid TV show, but it's more that you just never know how bands like resurge. I mentioned that, this is also Roller Report. But a lot of this year in particular, I think is a channel on one of the Grand Theft Auto games. So if you're driving in the car, there's different radio stations. A lot of these songs are on there. And in fact, one of them that's on here was the theme song in all the advertisements. But Men at Work. Men at Work's the band that I'm talking about. So Who Can It Be Now by Men at Work. So on Scrubs, on the TV show Scrubs, Colin Hay came out and he was doing an acoustic, and it was kind of a reprise throughout the episode of Overkill. That guy's voice is actually amazing. And the fact that they could replicate a lot of the stuff that they did on record live is really a testament to the band. Like, they're a really good band. But when bands are associated with pop and top hits, top 40 hits, sometimes they lose that, cachet that they're actually musicians, because it takes skill to write a great hook. And if you're a band who has multiple songs with really great hooks and you have multiple top 10 hits, I mean, that's craftsmanship. That's something that should be applauded. Fleetwood Mac, continuing to be just on the charts for now, a decade, I think, when you get to 82, with Hold Me, which is a Christy McVie, Lindsey Buckingham joint. What's interesting is Lindsey Buckingham is on here as a solo artist for the first time, which is, I think, part of some of the issues that the band had, other than just the breakup of, Stevie and Lindsey being a recurring, long-standing theme, even till today. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love that, Neil Finn from Crowded House is with them. Oh gosh, I'm going to forget his name, the guitar player for Tom Petty. Like, those are the replacements. So I mean, if you're going to have Lindsey Buckingham out of the band, you couldn't ask for two, better guys to be in there. But it does take two of them to equal one Lindsey Buckingham. Lindsey Buckingham's a really good guitar player. But we have one of the most boring songs by a boring band. And I actually played it for my wife earlier. She goes, I don't know if I've ever heard this song. What is it? Eye in the Sky by the Alan Parsons Project. What a snoozer of a song. That's like another song on here, Leader of the Band by Dan Fogelberg. Good grief. Some of this stuff is absolutely boring. It's like, how can some of these bands that are on here have been sharing the charts and radio with some of these bands? Journey makes the list here, and this also surprised me as far as which one was their bigger hit of 1982. Open Arms. Open Arms was the one, which I don't know how it happened, but for my senior prom, okay, this was ultimately our theme song. Now, what we had wanted was Bon Jovi's Never Say Goodbye. probably a little bit more generational